Osberg has led entrepreneurial organizations and been a change agent throughout her career. As president and CEO of the Skoll Foundation, she partners with founder and chairman Jeff Skoll and heads the organization's team in identifying and supporting innovators, pioneering scalable solutions to global challenges. In 2015, she co-authored Getting Beyond Better, How Social Entrepreneurship Works. It's a great book, be sure to get it. Sally founded the Skoll World Forum on Social Entrepreneurship, which is the largest gathering of social innovators around the world, and she recently returned from the 13th annual forum at Oxford University. So how fitting, right? How fitting for Sally to be our inspiration and our catalyst to take action around this all-important topic of social entrepreneurship. And I think we all want to personally thank AGK, Murali, and Kay, and the leadership of TiE for taking this topic on. Let's keep this going for the second year in a row. And as you will soon experience, Sally is not only amazing for her contributions to society, she is amazing in her own right. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Sally an opening question, which is, Sally, if you could please share with us, with the many change agents who are here in the room this morning, what the definition of social entrepreneurship is. Because I have a sneaking suspicion that there are many aspiring social entrepreneurs here in the room, so how do we spot ourselves?
Thank you, Lee, and let me add my thanks to the wonderful team here at TiE. It's been just a real pleasure getting to this point. And my colleague Padmasha is here from the Skoll Foundation, and I want to call her out because she told me no one's going to come to this track. They all go to the business entrepreneur, to the technical track. And so anyway, Padmasha, we're onto something at the Skoll Foundation. Nice. And then my colleague Dipender Saluja is here, and a wonderful social entrepreneur from the Skoll portfolio here, Premal Shah from Kiva. So thank you, and thank you for being here as colleagues, and thanks all of you for your interest. So what is social entrepreneurship? Well, chances are, I believe, it's not what you think it is, because you probably think that either social entrepreneurship is doing good through a business model that earns revenue in some kind of significant way, or you think it's just doing good on steroids. But it's actually much more like entrepreneurship. So let me ask all of you to get to Lee's question about how many of you may be aspiring social entrepreneurs or social entrepreneurs yourselves, and ask how many of you have actually been really struck by some problem in your own backyard or in a developing world context, problem like sanitation, or a problem like access to healthcare, or a problem like education. How many of you have really seen and been really moved by a problem that you've seen in the world? That's, yeah, all of us. Okay, so now the next step. How many of you have actually dug into that problem in some really significant way, have tried to understand it at an ecosystem level, understand it as a status quo that got to be the way it is because of a system of actors, reinforcements, forces, incentives, disincentives? How many of you have gone that step to really understand that problem? Okay. A lot of you. That's actually pretty unusual, I think. And it says a lot about this community. Now, third step. How many of you have actually pulled up your socks and said, if not me, who? And if not now, when? I'm going to do something about that. Okay, you are a remarkable, remarkable community, because some of you clearly are social entrepreneurs. The defining attribute of a social entrepreneur is that that social entrepreneur sets about changing a dysfunctional equilibrium. That is a status quo that got to be the way it is because of incentives, because of actors who don't know any differently and who just persist in maintaining a system that leads to the disadvantage, marginalization, or suffering of some very significant segment of the population. Social entrepreneurs, like entrepreneurs, drive disruption. They drive disruption at the level of the ecosystem. They drive disruption in order to create a new, more sustainable, and phenomenally improved state. So that's the getting beyond better. It's not about incremental change. It's about step change, replacing a dysfunctional system with an optimal system in which everybody wins.
And Sally, following up on that, why do you feel that there's so much enthusiasm around social entrepreneurship today, and why is it more and more a part of the roadmap to take on the world's biggest problems?
Well, if we could get up the first slide, I think it might help. Most of us just think of the work in the social sector as the province of the not-for-profit sector. And we think of these agents as in really three categories. We think of social service providers. Think about the people who are running food banks in communities, or shelters for, people who are abused by domestic violence. We think of those as social service providers. Mother Teresa was a phenomenal social service provider. And then we think of social advocates, the people who are actually challenging governments or challenging corporations to do something, to enact policies that will make phenomenal change. And they're social activists. Indirect action, trying to get someone else to do something. Both social activists and social entrepreneurs try for step change, try for equilibrium change. Social service providers are after incremental improvement to some condition of misery. The social entrepreneur really goes after both through direct action for the equilibrium change. So that's what makes the social entrepreneur so appealing, that it's not incremental. It is this ambition to actually disrupt and change something that's suboptimal for society. If we could look at the next slide. What social entrepreneurs do, though, that may actually surprise you is that social entrepreneurs aren't necessarily trying to bypass government. They don't always have a business model that is conducive to their potential to scale. What they do is they adapt the principles and the practices of government innovators and of business innovators. And so they put something together in a whole new way, just as Kiva has done with its micro-lending platform. That's on track to lend $1 billion and actually become a sustainable venture in itself. But the example I thought I'd share with you is the one of Nandan Nilekani. Now, all of you know who Nandan Nilekani is, right? The founder of Infosys, a phenomenally successful Indian entrepreneur. Wrote a book in 2008 called Reimagining India. Got the attention of Thomas Friedman. It also got the attention of Prime Minister Singh. So in 2009, Prime Minister Singh asked Nandan to take on a challenge that actually Nandan had identified in his book, and that challenge was the fact that a third of the Indian population, so hundreds of millions of people, were without any kind of formal identification. No birth certificate, no voting registration, nothing that would actually give them access to government services that would enable their children to enroll in school. They were essentially non-persons, invisible for all intents and purposes. So Nandan took on this challenge, the Unique Identifier Authority of India, and brought his expertise, biometric technology, his technological expertise, and his business expertise to actually build out a program. So quasi-government, it was the government authority, but he took on that challenge as a business entrepreneur. So where government policy would have said, okay, now everybody has to get an Aadhaar number, Nandan said, no, this needs to be volitional, like a customer. People would actually access this for their own benefit. So would it be ubiquitous? No, it's again going to be, would only be scaled to the extent that people actually saw value. How would you disseminate this? Okay, through government centers, right? No. We're going to enroll partners throughout the community. Community centers, people can enroll in community centers. 30,000 partners throughout the subcontinent. So in the end, when Nandan stepped down, 600 million people now had their Aadhaar numbers. Yeah. And just last month, a billion Indian citizens had their Aadhaar number. Now that scale, can you call it business? No. Can you call it government? No. Is it really a hybrid entity? Mm-hmm. Well, not really. You're just adapting these practices and principles from business and government to hit scale, to create the platform for transformation. Mm-hmm. You know, banks are using this now. So the commercial applications as well as the social applications are phenomenal. That's what social entrepreneurship looks like.
And here we are at TiEcon, which is just this collection of entrepreneurial talent and spirit. Also a discussion around funding and investing. So Sally, as an investor in social entrepreneurs, what advice do you have, what personal advice do you have for all of us who are on our journey of becoming, aspiring, or being more social entrepreneurial in our everyday activities?
Well, we were talking about this earlier, Lee, and you shared with me some personal experiences of meeting some phenomenal activists. And you're going to have a phenomenal experience this afternoon when you experience Kailash Satyarthi. Everybody has the capacity to do something in this space to bring about a better world, whether it's as donors, board directors. There is a huge crying need for social entrepreneurs to be better served by boards. And I would say it's true for many business entrepreneurs too. How many of you were at the opening, at the SanDisk interview? Yeah. Well, you heard him talking about the investors and the relationship there. So boards that really are aligned fundamentally with the mission and the purpose of the socially entrepreneurial venture, probably many of you can actually serve that role in a really superb way. And then those of you who are aspiring social entrepreneurs, understand that it's not about being a social entrepreneur without that deep understanding of a problem, of a system that enables you to identify the lever for change. So those are just three lessons really from our work as an investor in social entrepreneurs, their organizations, their ventures, and their models. Great. For bringing about change.
And Kay, if we have time for one more question, great. So Sally is just back from the School Awards, and I really recommend all of you read about the recipients, 6 different recipients this year. And what's great about the School Awards is they're giving the funding to younger social entrepreneurs who have the time and the runway to scale and really affect change. It's not a Lifetime Achievement Award. And is there one of the 6 that is just particularly compelling as you sit here today?
Well, it's like being asked about your favorite child, and so it's not an easy question, but there is an individual to whom we gave the Skoll Award this year, a fellow named Brian Stevenson, whose organization is called the Equal Justice Initiative. And Brian is taking on I don't even know what to call it, the failed criminal justice system in this country that disproportionately by orders of magnitude incarcerates African Americans, and so systematically, I think, perpetuates a system that's predicated on racism and injustice in this country in the name of justice. And he's doing it in such a rigorous and thoughtful way, identifying cases that can go all the way to the Supreme Court, but also holding up a mirror so that we all start to see and understand this history of, we built an agricultural economy in this country on the back of slaves. And so we have this history that we've never really confronted. And Brian is working so that we hold up the mirror and we understand, as he would say, that we're better than that. And so that one, I think, has the potential to really make phenomenal change in my lifetime.
Sally, thank you so very much. You were so much what we knew you'd be here, the catalyst for all of us to be everyday activists in this area. And we know there's a great lineup, so thank you for starting this off. And please, everyone, join me. And thank you, Sally.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee.